Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday, and I hope you guys all had a wonderful Mother's Day weekend. A little strange, I know, a little difficult not being around family, but hopefully you got some Seacrest love, and that had to suffice at least for the time being, while we, God willing, will be back to some sense of normal in a relatively short period of time. So today is Lag BaOmer. Yay! What is Lag BaOmer, you say? I'm going to tell you. So first, let's talk about the name of the holiday, because I think that will answer a lot of your questions. And I just happen to have this little piece of paper prepared on which is written up. It's upside down. Boy, oh boy. Wait, it's not upside down. Let's see. Uh, well, I hope this is not backwards for you. I hope that you are reading this in the Hebrew. Here's a Lamed, a Gimel, Lag, Ba, O, Mer. I'm going to have to watch the video and see if this came out upside down. I hope not, but it may be. But I'm going to try to explain it anyway. So the day after the first day of Passover, which this year was April 8th, we embarked on a process known as counting the Omer. Now, an Omer is a sheaf of barley, because in Israel right now it is barley season. It's barley harvest season. And this season goes from now until Shavuot. It is 49 days, 7 weeks. Isn't that convenient? And during this period of time, we count every day up to 49. We count the days, the weeks, and then there's a special formula for how you count. So, for example, if it happens to be the 28th day of the Omer, the formula would be, or let's say the 29th day of the Omer, we would say today is the 29th day of the counting of the Omer, which is 4 weeks and 1 day of the Omer. And it's this very formulaic system of counting the days. So now let me tell you what log means. The word log, Lamed Gimel, with that little, what looks like a quotation mark in the middle, is an abbreviation. It's not a real word. It's an abbreviation. It would be like putting USA as an abbreviation for the United States of America. It actually represents a number. The Hebrew alphabet is also used as a numerical system for what's called gematria. So every letter of the Hebrew alphabet has a numerical equivalent. It would be like saying A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, and so on. So in the Hebrew alphabet, Lamed is worth 30. And Gimel, Aleph Bet Gimel, is 3. So we take the 30 plus the 3 and we add them together and we get 33. So Lag BaOmer is the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer. Okay, big deal. Why is the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer so important? And why is this considered a minor Jewish holiday? I'm going to tell you right now. By the way, the 33rd day of the Omer also happens to fall on the 18th day of the Hebrew month of Iyar, but that's probably more information than you want or need at this point. There are a couple of reasons why we celebrate this day. One is that it is interpreted as a celebration or the anniversary of the death of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Now, he was an important sage of the Mishnaic era, and he was a leading disciple of Rabbi Akiva. And I'm sure many of you have heard of Rabbi Akiva. He was a very famous rabbi of the 2nd century. And it is the yahrzeit, actually, of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who was a disciple of Rabbi Akiva. And it is said that on the day he died, which was the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer, which was also the 18th of the month of Iyar, he revealed the deepest secrets of Kabbalah in the form of a book known as the Zohar, the Book of Splendor, which literally means, Zohar literally means radiance. And this is the key text that explains the secrets of Kabbalah. 2nd century Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. And there's all kinds of imagery around his death. It is said that at the time that he died, that light glowed from him, and so on and so forth. And so there is all kinds of celebration and associations that were spawned that became customs on this day, including things like the lighting of bonfires and pilgrimages to his tomb in the northern Israeli town of Meron, and various customs that take place around the tomb itself. Now, there's a second reason for this holiday, or a second explanation, and that is that during the time of Rabbi Akiva, he had some 24,000 disciples. And it is said that these disciples were apparently not very nice to one another. And he, as much as he tried, I don't know what that means exactly, but there was probably a lot of one-upsmanship, and they competed with each other. And they were struck by a plague. And as a result, many of those disciples died. But on the 33rd day of the Omer, the 18th of Iyar, the plague ended. And so many Jews look at the first 32 days of the Omer as a period of semi-mourning, during which weddings are not permitted, bar mitzvahs are not permitted, other celebrations are not permitted. You do not cut your hair. Men do not cut their beards. This is probably a really good time that we're going through this isolation right now, because I've seen some pretty bad haircuts that have been done, self haircuts. And so better to wait, because today, on the 33rd day of the Omer, on Lag BaOmer, you could start doing all that stuff again. You're allowed to cut your hair. You're allowed, if you're a man and you've been growing out your beard, you're allowed to shave your beard, and so on. So this period of semi-mourning, during which we don't do any of these celebratory life cycle events, we are now permitted to again. So you may remember when you got married that you wanted to get married after Pesach because it was the big spring holiday, and you wanted to get married in the spring, and maybe your rabbi said, can't get married until such and such a day. So starting today, the 33rd day of the Omer, Lag BaOmer, we are allowed to start doing weddings and bar mitzvahs and baby namings. And there's one life cycle event that you can do no matter what, and that is a Brit Milah, a circumcision, because that takes place on the 8th day of a baby boy's life, whether it is Shabbat, Yom Kippur, or anything else. That supersedes everything. So, let me tell you a little bit more about this holiday. It is observed by both Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardic Jews. It is observed a little bit differently, whether you are an of Eastern European descent or whether you are of Oriental descent, meaning the Middle Eastern countries and the African countries like Morocco and Algeria and Yemen and so on. There are some fine differences, but most often the day is celebrated with bonfires, picnics, barbecues, and bows and arrows. And they don't have to be real ones, they can be toy ones. Why bows and arrows? Well, there's a third reason that Lag BaOmer is celebrated, and um, that has to do with a guy by the name of Bar Kokhba, who led a revolt he was revolting. He led a revolt against the um, I'm just getting all my dates here. He led a revolt against the Romans, and this took place no, I don't want the movie. This took place between 132 and 136 of the Common Era. And this was the second of three revolts led against the Romans. And again, if you look at the date, 132 to 136 CE, this was about 60 years after the temple was destroyed in Jerusalem. And Bar Kokhba put together a group of tens of thousands of men, and they led a revolt against the Roman province of Judea. Ancient Israel at that time was divided into two primary areas, which were Israel in the north and Judea in the south. And Bar Kokhba led this revolt and was successful. There had been, as I mentioned, one prior to that, and there was a third one. But unfortunately, winning the battles and winning the revolts does not mean winning the war. There had been large-scale destruction of the Judean population by the Roman troops. There had been suppression of Jewish religious and political autonomy by the Roman king Hadrian. Jews had been banned from Jerusalem. And so this revolt was quite consequential. And I'm just looking here at some information that Bar Kokhba had 100,000. I'm just looking here. Had it looks like about, let's see, 485, over 500,000, well over 500,000 legions, and militia, Jewish militia, and auxiliary units and troops who fought against the Romans over a 3-year period of time, winning this particular revolt, but unfortunately not taking Jerusalem back permanently from the Romans. So, as I mentioned, we have bonfires and we have cookouts and we have celebrations that the plague stopped. We have a mention of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who created this amazing book known as the Zohar, the Splendor, that talked about Jewish mysticism in the way of Kabbalah. And the plague of the disciples came to an end on that day. And the Bar Kokhba revolt of 132 to 136 was successful. And so the bows and arrows that kids play with, and that even very traditional Orthodox rabbis play with toy ones, represents Bar Kokhba's soldiers and their success in this revolt. So the origins of Lag BaOmer, which is a minor festival because we don't fast on this festival, and we don't have special services on this festival. There is some liturgy, but we don't have like a festival day like we do for Shavuot or for Pesach. So the origins are a little less clear, but the date is mentioned explicitly for the first time not until the 12th century by Avraham ben Natan in a sefer, in a book that he wrote. And that states that during the time of Rabbi Akiva, that 24,000 of his students had died from this divinely sent plague. Yes, by the way, the plague came from God. And it was during the counting of the Omer, and it was because they did not show proper respect to one another. And it's a day when, according to tradition, the plague ended. And so we celebrate the plague coming to an end. Now, in some religious circles, the holiday is not observed. It's not observed as a yahrzeit for Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. It's not observed as a celebration of the victory of Bar Kokhba. It's not celebrated as anything or observed as anything. And that is among some sects of religious Jews who look at this as a modern holiday and not a biblical holiday. In other words, it's an observance that did not come directly from the Bible, but was designated by the rabbis in later centuries. And so anything that is deemed modern is not observed by certain groups of Orthodox Jews, because their belief is that if it didn't come from the Bible and it wasn't mandated as a holiday directly from God, then it should not be observed. And so they don't.